Hello everybody. Today we're going to do something very important. We're going to do some duplicate checks before we create records inside your SuiteCRM system via n8n, via your workflow automation system. Okay, so let's go. Duplicates are really a big problem in projects. If you have them in marketing, then you might send out two different text messages or emails or whatever in campaigns. If you have them in sales, you might call the same person twice, maybe from two different people, and you're asking the same question and the customer is just be strange, like, why do they ask me twice the same thing? If you have them in analytics, you may have way more leads or way more customers than you actually have, so therefore try to avoid duplicates. And how to do this? If you're integrating systems, it will be much more difficult and easier at the same time to avoid duplicates, and that's what we're going to do now. So I would like to create a new lead, but before I do this, I would like to check whether a lead with the identical email address exists already inside our CRM system. What do we need? We need our SuiteCRM system prepared for the API integration. We need n8n. Check out as well my video on SuiteCRM and n8n integration for the basis here, or the one where we search for leads, because we're going to build up the whole thing on this one here. And if you have some specific questions, then always the documentation is a great help in order to get some details right. So the first thing is I want to duplicate this workflow, and then I would call this create SuiteCRM Lead, and then important, without duplicates. And now what do we do here? We basically here standard our token, and then I would be searching for SuiteCRM. I just show it for a second. So here I've got my standard GET request to the leads module, but I'm filtering for the email address, and the email should equal, and then this one. To make this more dynamic, I would like to add a form trigger. So n8n comes with built-in forms, which is this one here. And here I could say something like form title. Maybe we call this lead form or whatever. You might have this anyway on your website and you don't need this. First name, it's not required. Then I want to add another field and I call it last name. This one is required, however, by the CRM system. So if we can make sure that our form solutions, our web forms, validate this already, that the requirement is fulfilled, and then we've got it way easier down the line because we don't have to check in our integration. So in the email is an email, and is this a required field? Technically not, but for testing this now, then it would be required because we want to check for duplicate emails. I remove this one here because we don't want this. We want to have this more dynamically. So now I've got a form, I've got the token, and I'm searching by what? And therefore I first need to test the whole thing. So here, first name, last 01, and my email would be something like first01. Yeah, can just use any email address, doesn't matter for testing, and I submit my form. And then on the canvas, you see that the data already arrived now. So we've got last name, email, and then we've got some metadata, the name of the form, and the submitted at the date time, which we don't really need. So the first thing, get our token, yes. And now we could try to search in our CRM system for not this email, but the email that we just used to enter at the form, at the web form. And the rest is basically just a simple get. So I'm using my access token here, ignoring SSL issues because I'm locally here in my development environment, and I want to have a JSON response. And now let's check out the JSON response. So here we don't have a response like this is your lead, but here we've got basically a message saying everything worked fine, but I didn't find anything for what you were searching for. And then we retrieve a data array which is empty. And that's what we should be using now in order to test how to continue. So there I could say, if the data array, this one here, if this one is, and now I would need to tell that's an array, and if the array is empty, and then I test the step, and then I've got two branches because it's an if. So if else. So an if, I would have a true example here, I would have a true result if it was empty. So what do we do if it's empty, or what does it mean? Empty means the lead does not exist yet with this email address, and therefore we can create it. So and that's what we're going to do now, because now we are at the true, as you can see, how to create it. Basically the standard create record inside our CRM system. Wait, first I want to connect this one here, so I got access to the data from before. Then rename this here, and this one is not a search, this one is a create SuiteCRM Lead. That's all it is. Now, I don't want to use get, and if you're uncertain about this one, you can go back here and see what you have to fill out in order to, what do we have here? Create a module record and update the module record later on. So post method to the module without a slash, and this is our example body that we need to adjust a little bit to our use case. So post, and we can remove all of this, including the last slash behind the module. Then we don't have our JSON token anymore. I want to get this from here. And then we need to send a body because we're sending a post. So on post and patch requests, the API expects us to send a body. It should be a JSON body because we're working with a JSON API. Makes sense, right? So, and then we want to use the whole JSON here because it's just easier. You can use individual fields, but this is like very cumbersome to work on every single individual fields. Therefore, I would create this JSON here. So, and this one goes to the module or to the type leads. And now, if you're not certain what names you have here, you would simply do a get, and then in the get record, you will have all the details how the names are called. So first I want to start with the last name. That's a tendency or a little bit of a habit to start with the required fields first, because then, those 2 or those 7 are required, and therefore, you finished those already. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to work with the first name and match or map this as well. And then we've got the email, which is the email 1, because the email is technically a submodule, like a hidden submodule underneath the contacts, leads, and targets module, and therefore you can have multiple emails inside one of your person records. And in order to make it easy to work via the API, you don't have to work with relationships here. You can use email 1 or email 2, which are basically prepared for you already. So now I need to change this to the expression. And if I have the expression in place, I can drag and drop my data, which was coming from my web form, right? So we built this web form here inside in automation. Usually you would not have this in automation, but rather in your, website with a web form, lead form, however you retrieve data from forms. And then you would connect this to n8n, and then you will be able to access the data here. And as you can see, the preview, that already looks quite good. And now the rest should just stay the same. Ignore SSL, JSON response, yes. So I do a test. And as you can see, that seemed to have worked out because we're retrieving the response here. And that's what I mentioned here. You can see all the details on what are the field names, what's supposed to be inside those field names. Here we've got email 1, email 2, and so on. So if you're uncertain, you can just do a simple GET request. Check out my video on the SuiteCRM n8n integration and the the initial integration, because there we do a GET request. So that's fine. If we haven't found the email, I can create the lead. If we have found the email, I don't want to create the lead, I want to update it. So this is what we're going to do now. So I'm simply going to duplicate this here, drag and drop my false branch into this node. And here, this one is now not called anymore create. This one is called update. And the update method, if you want to know more, just check out this one here or my fitting video on this one. So it looks fairly similar. It's a patch request, same endpoint, but the body, the payload expects an ID as well. Otherwise, it didn't know where to, which record to update. So as I said, it needs to be a patch. The endpoint is the same. The rest should be more or less the same as well. And we need to additionally have inside our leads, but we can't do this now because here we didn't find it yet. So we have to test it or do something about the whole thing. So I need to do this one here quickly. So I reload this one, open it, test the step, I get the new window. So now I enter the first name, I would enter the last name, and I would enter the identical email address as well. So, and now I test this one here. And then we just continue through the workflow as we built it up before. But now, as you can see, this one here is green. So we are in the false branch now. Why are we here in the false branch? The question was, is our response from the search for the email address empty? Now it's not empty anymore. Now, as you can see, we've got data. Inside the data, we've got our lead, and there we've got our correct ID, which we can now use and work with. So false is connected to our update, and the update now has access to these details, and these details are what I want to use for our update. So here inside our ID, I would add this one that has been found here. So you need to be careful. There could be cases if it's too late already. So there could be cases that you already have duplicates in your system. Now it found 2, and therefore you would need to handle it in a different way. So if you found 2, the question is again, which one is the correct one? And then you maybe need to manually do data cleaning first, or you need to have a very well-defined deletion logic in place or something. But here for our purpose, this looks really good. And then I can do the update here. And now I check the CRM system here as well. And now I should have the first name listed as well, and not a third lead. So as you can see, that worked out. I've got the first name, which is basically twisted. So I think I did this wrong inside our mapping. So this is very important. Let's double check this. So this is basically called mapping. And if it's complex, you see, I've put the last name together with the first name. Of course, this is wrong. So here I would have the last name, and there I would need to set the first name. So if you have bigger projects, and then you would maybe have a mapping document, especially if the fields would be called in different ways inside your ERP marketing automation or whatever, and your CRM system, in order to translate basically the stuff. So now let's see, I've executed another update, and now suddenly we're called correctly here. So therefore that's good. And as you can see, it's very important to be extremely careful on the wordings. If you have different values here, then you might need to do value translation of specific things. So therefore there's much more to it. But overall, what you can see here is a nice duplicate prevention by just searching for the email address. And then if you found one, then you would If you found none, then you would create it. If you found one, then you would update. So as you can hear already, there is a third possibility. You found more than one. So you would need to define this as well in your project. What happens if you have more than one time the email that you just was searching for? Overall, this worked very well. We avoided duplicates, even though we created 2 times or filled out the form twice as the same or with the same email address. So thank you very much for watching. That's all for this video. In the next videos, we're going to build way more automations and integrations for your business processes, SuiteCRM, and other business applications. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye.